With just a week to go in his presidency, Joe Biden is working to define his legacy with a series of speeches. Today, he's focused on foreign policy. And the CBC's Peter Armstrong was watching and joins us live from Washington. So, Peter, Biden delivered his remarks at the U.S. State Department. What stood out to you?
Sort of the context of it all, Andrew, really is what stands out to me, because I think most of us look out at the world right now and see things a little chaos and disorder, right? There are wars in the Middle East, there are wars in Europe, there's an economic crisis rippling through much of the world. And I think a lot of the critics of this administration and this president would say they didn't do enough to keep that disorder at bay. Cut to President Joe Biden today, as you say, trying to cement his legacy on foreign policy, which is so important to him. He has a more generalized speech to give on Friday, but he decided to give this today to specifically pin down what he sees as his legacy around foreign policy. And he went through a fairly long list saying the U.S. is winning the competition in the world, that America is stronger and our adversaries and our competitors are weaker. America is more capable and better prepared than we've been in a long time. One example he gave of that is Russia. Yes, Russia started a war in Europe in spite of the fact that much of the Western world, including the United States, told it not to. But where are we now? Listen to what he had to say about Russia.
When Putin invaded Ukraine, he thought he'd conquer Kyiv in a matter of days. But the truth is, since that war began, I'm the only one that stood in the center of Kyiv, not him. Putin never has. Think about it. It was a long train ride, but I'm the only commander-in-chief to visit a war zone not controlled by U.S. forces. We helped Ukrainians stop Putin. And now, nearly three years later, Putin has failed to achieve any of his strategic objectives.
And as a result of what Russia's been doing in Ukraine, the Russian economy is weaker. The Russian ability to project itself out into the global world is weaker. And he had a whole laundry list of countries that are weaker as well. Iran is in shambles. Syria, Assad is in exile, and there's hope for that country. As he says, it's the first time in a long time an American president is not handing off a war in Afghanistan. The biggest issue, of course, is the Israel-Hamas war. He says he hopes there's a deal on the table that's imminent. We'll see if that can get done before the clock runs out on his presidency.
Yeah, I mean, Peter, I think what looms large is that, Biden is only going to be president for another week, and then that is it. And so it kind of, begs the question when it comes to, for instance, rejoining the Paris Climate Accord, when it comes to the alliances, America's allies being closer than ever. We have Donald Trump threatening a trade war with Canada, saying he says China, when Biden says China needs to abide by international rules and fair trade practices. A lot of Canadians will say, well, it doesn't sound like Donald Trump is going to do that in a week from now. And then when it comes to Ukraine, right? I mean, what will happen with Ukraine once Donald Trump becomes president?
These are all really important questions. And I think, Andrew, as much as we want to try to define the legacy of the Biden administration today, how these all end up playing out is what's going to really end up defining that presidency. Because lest we forget, the incoming administration sees the worldview from a completely different stance. It doesn't jibe with anything that Biden was saying today, and wants to change a lot of what Biden has been doing, and blames Biden for a lot of that chaos and disorder that is sort of rippling through the world right now. And funnily enough, the only two things that Biden specifically spoke about that he said that he hopes the new administration will take on were the issues of AI, that America needs to stay on top of that and be the world leader in that, and the clean energy transition. I think he can probably count on number one getting done. I think there's a lot of interest in carrying through and keeping America in a leadership position on AI and its development. But on the energy and clean energy transition, I think that's one area that we can expect to see some pretty dramatic changes. Because, as I say, this administration simply sees everything he's done from a very different vantage point.
There's skepticism. We hear Donald Trump talk about windmills and whales and all that. So it'll be interesting to see. Okay, Peter, thank you. CBC's Peter Armstrong reporting from Washington.